Republican Senate coming up from a $30 million education offer to $1 billion, and even considering the special ed funding and formula. Your response to that? He says he was gratified to hear you say you think that's important.
Well, at the end of the day, we have to work together to get good things done for the people of the state of Minnesota. That's been the commitment from Senate Republicans all along, is let's work together, let's figure this out, let's find compromise where we can and get good things done for the people of the state of Minnesota. So education's an area that has long been a priority for Democrats and Republicans. We took a little bit different approach this year, Senate Republicans did. We put a strong focus on literacy. When 40% of the kids are not proficient in reading, when they're not reading at grade level, that's problematic, and it makes every other subject area more difficult. So that's why we made investments to make sure that teachers have the tools they need to teach kids the skills they need to be successful in the classroom. Now, with that said, we've heard from school districts across the state that there's a shortage, or there's a need for the special education cross subsidy. And this, of course, is a federal mandate, and I would say an unfunded federal mandate that's been pushed down to the districts. So when there's a significant need like there is with the special education cross subsidy, we're open to looking at increasing funding in that area.
No, as you look across the spectrum of conference committees that are doing work today, there was talk yesterday about Wednesday or Thursday buttoning some of these things up. How do you feel about the progress?
Well, at some point, the members of the conference committees are going to have to focus on the areas of agreement. And if there's disagreement, those things are going to have to get tossed aside for now and focus on the areas of agreement. I do think in education, for example, in E12, I think there's common agreement on literacy. I think there's common agreement on the special education cross subsidy. When it comes to health and human services, the other big one, we put a strong focus on nursing homes and long-term care facilities. When we're hearing that nursing homes and long-term care facilities and disability service providers are potentially facing permanent closures, that's problematic. That's very, very concerning. That's a crisis situation. That's why you saw big investments from the Senate in these areas. We hope that the House will join us in addressing these critical needs in nursing homes, long-term care facilities, and disability service providers. So I think we can find enough commonality in health and human services to get that wrapped up hopefully by tomorrow. And public safety is another issue that we're hearing about from Minnesotans. Violent crime is at record highs, and we're seeing police officers retire at a faster rate and a younger age than ever before. We provide investments to law enforcement to provide funding for more police officers. We know more good cops results in less crime. So I think public safety could come together relatively quickly. And then we've also just nailed down a few more budget areas. Higher education should have their numbers here shortly. Environment, I think we're there. Agriculture and drought relief, I think we're there. Commerce, I think we're there. And we're going to continue to work on the other budget areas too. So by the end of the day today, we should have the numbers set for all of the individual conference committees, and then those committees are going to have to get to work, and they're going to have to move very, very quickly in order for this to get done by the deadline Sunday at midnight is what I'm being told.
What makes you optimistic about public safety? Because earlier today we saw a little bit of a meltdown in that conference committee.
Well, if you look at what the needs are, it's pretty straightforward. We need additional funding for more cops. We need more good cops on the street. And whether that's funding to local municipalities with some guardrails on it so we know that that money is going to be used for public safety, whether that's retention or recruitment type bonuses. The bottom line is we need more money for law enforcement. So I'm hoping that Democrats and Republicans can come to an agreement on providing more funding for police officers, and I think once that comes together, the rest of those pieces will fall into place.
The governor suggested today, too, that there might be some sort of boost to the per pupil formula. Have you at all discussed that?
We have not discussed that, no.
And on sports betting, I know that's not in the main buckets of where you put the money, but I'm curious if you have any agreement on that.
Hey, look, I've long been a supporter of sports betting. There's no one at the Capitol that would like to see it get done more than me. We need the stakeholders to get together. If the tribes and the tracks can come together and sort of work towards an agreement, I'm confident that we could get bipartisan support for the sports betting bill, but until that happens, it's going to be challenging to get enough votes to get it passed.
To clarify on your earlier comment, are you saying that higher education, enviro, ag, they have a target now, or you're close to a target for them?
Yeah, we're very, very close, if not there. So those should be announced in the coming hours, if not soon.
And for drought relief, is there just a total for them that you will hand down, or have they actually reached a deal there?
I think they're very close to reaching a deal. My understanding is there were some offers exchanged in previous days, and I think one of those offers is going to be accepted.
Can you expand a little bit on the public safety stuff? It sounds like maybe you guys do have some sort of general agreement that at least some of that $450 million will go to, or a lot of it will go specifically to cops and public safety, which has sometimes been a iffy thing for Democrats in the House.
Yeah, I don't think that there's an agreement on that. I'm saying that it's pretty clear to me where the resources need to be spent. And at a time when, again, when you have police officers retiring at a faster rate and younger age than ever before, when you have our largest city, which also is a city where crime rates are absolutely out of control, down 300 plus police officers, clearly we need to provide some resources there to help with that crisis situation.
Senator, we kind of jumped in with questions. Did you have something you were wanting to tell us to start
No,
with?
I'm just here to answer questions as an update. A few of you asked me on the Senate floor, and rather than doing one-offs, I thought it'd be better just to give an update.
What are you
Fully transparent and accessible.
What are you hearing about bonding?
Well, they have their number. That's all I've heard so far.
But it still has to originate in the House.
It does have to originate in the House, yep, and I don't think you're going to see, a week ago we were talking about perhaps the House passing a bill and the Senate passing a bill and working through a conference committee. There's just simply not enough time right now, so you have the chairs and the leads are working together trying to figure out what that bonding bill might look like.
On the floor, you said there might be more votes tonight. Is that, can you
I do
hint
not.
at what that might be?
I do not anticipate any additional votes tonight. There was a possibility of the House maybe taking up an issue tonight and sending it over, but I don't believe that's going to be the case.
But Senator, every grouping will have a number. Everybody gets a chunk of that 1.38, whatever was left over, and now that will be given.
Statement, yes.
Does the agreement require everything? Meaning, can you end up with half of them passed and half of them not passed? Or
That's
was
a
the
great
agreement?
question. I think that is undetermined at this point. It was not part of the discussion. We may have different views on that. My view is if the conference committees can't get their work done, that money should, well, in my view, that money should go towards tax relief, but at the very least drop to the bottom line. I don't know if Speaker Hortman and the governor feel the same way. We have not discussed it. Our hope is to fulfill our commitment and get all of these bills passed. But the conference committees need to start getting serious about getting done, because when we say Wednesday night on these, or Wednesday on these larger bills, that means Wednesday, and that, of course, is tomorrow, so there's not very much time left.
Senator, you mentioned ag is one area that's close to getting done, but you didn't mention broadband and housing, which are in the same conference committee. What's the status of those two?
Let's see here. Housing and broadband are still being discussed, but I think we're making good progress.
Where do things stand on the Social Security tax situation?
Still in play. Permanent ongoing tax relief has been a priority for Republicans since the budget forecast was released, showing a massive budget surplus. Of course, the two big pieces of our proposal were the full elimination of Social Security taxes. Minnesota is one of only 12 states that still taxes Social Security income. Republicans proposed the full elimination of those taxes, Social Security taxes. And then, of course, we had a income tax rate reduction that would put more money in the pockets of hardworking Minnesotans every single paycheck, week after week, month after month, year after year. So both of those are still in play, but we've given the conference committee the opportunity to work through those details.
So might you get pieces of all that stuff? Meaning it's too expensive under that target for you to get both your full, your rate cut and your full Social Security. So is it possible that they're giving you, raising the thresholds on Social Security or having a smaller rate cut?
It is possible, but Republicans are going to continue to fight for permanent ongoing tax relief for seniors and hardworking Minnesotans.
Can you give us a sense, as much as you can, of what the next couple days will look like?
Well, your guess is as good as mine at this point, but I'm hoping what we'll see some of these conference committees start to wrap up tomorrow. That's what needs to happen in order for us to finish on time. So we're going to continue to put pressure on the conference committees to get their work done. If for some reason they can't, then the speaker and I might have to step in and help out. But our hope and our goal is to see the conference committees get their work done without the leaders having to step in.
And when they do get their work done, how soon can you take it up on the floor?
As soon as it's ready to go, as soon as the revisor's office can have it ready. So the smaller bills have a much quicker turnaround. Health and Human Services is probably the largest one. That'll probably have a 1 to 2 day turnaround, if not more. So, and the other thing is we can't send all the bills to the revisor at the same time because they don't have the capacity to do them all at once. So we have to stagger it, and we have to give them the larger bills first so they can get them processed. They can potentially do a larger bill and maybe 1 or 2 smaller bills at the same time, but they can't do them all at one time.
So are they going to take 1 or 2 of those smaller bills on the floor tomorrow?
I don't think we'll see anything ready to go by tomorrow. I do think it's a possibility that some of the conference committees could either be very close or reach an agreement later tonight if they're meeting, if not that soon, perhaps by midday tomorrow.
Are you leaning in the direction of any conference committee that you think you might have to be ready to step in?
At this point, I don't know. I don't know. I hope not.
Anything else?
Tomorrow, you might be ready to step in if things haven't changed?
We'll have to start stepping in tomorrow I believe, if not tomorrow, certainly by Thursday, the speaker and I might have to start stepping in and trying to move a few of these along if they're not to that point yet.
And would the governor then be involved in that? Would it be
Yep, the
all
governor's
of them?
also been involved, yep.
So in terms of bonding, the agreement wasn't signed by Speaker Drought or Minority Leader Lopez Franzen. So in terms of bonding, you need those votes. Are they getting brought in?
Yes, they've been involved in the bonding discussions every step of the way. Okay? Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.
We noticed you got your phone.